Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? You good? Good? Some excitement here. So my name is Joshua Donlan. I'm the program director for our web and mobile technologies here at the school. And I don't want to say he's like my grad, but he's definitely a grad from a program which my program's inherited from. So as you know, like as a school, we grow all the time. And historically, we had a program called digital media, and it was an associate's only degree. And, we've grown so much since then. And it is my pleasure today to welcome the founder and CEO of Purple, who is a grad of that program and then a consummate entrepreneur that has gone on to develop not just Purple, but other entities as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about his journey and how that came about today. So if you would, please welcome to this stage, Bobby Jones.
Hey, man.
So we were just talking about this backstage. We don't actually have an agenda. When we do these things, we kind of like it to be a little bit more organic and kind of just topical. So the one thing that we did talk about is just kind of what I was introducing there is coming from digital media and kind of what that was. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about like what digital media was at the time when you went through as a student.
Yeah, so first of all, so good to be back here at Full Sail. So I graduated in, I don't even know what year now, late 90s, but it was one of the first actual digital media programs. And I think I was like the fourth class, and it was super rogue. We legitimately did work out of the Illustrator book. Like there was the curriculum was still trying to get, figured out and sorted out. So that was an interesting time. But like at that time, it was really more focused on like action scripting stuff and learning to use all the basic Adobe Suite line of tools. And then, it's just like a true testament to just as sort of technology continues to grow, the way that Full Sail has like embraced that and not been afraid to like bring on brand new programs that are forward thinking for today's industry.
Sure, and I think that speaks a little bit about the challenges that we have here with education and how they mirror the real world. So you're learning the tooling of like Adobe products and those kinds of things, and then largely we could consider a lot of that to be second nature to a lot of these students, where you don't even have to be in a technical program per se to have your feet wet with those things and get your hands dirty making artwork or assets. So how do you grow from there? How do you said action scripting. So again, that's for those of you who don't know, there's a couple of younger people in the room. Action scripting was a language that went behind a little program that we called Macromedia Flash, which was then bought by Adobe and made Adobe Flash, and then Steve Jobs killed that, and saying there's no Flash on the iPhone, so there's no more Flash. So even that, which was kind of the auxiliary, is a dead technology. So you had to grow from that. So walk us through kind of that into founding your own company with Purple back in 2004 and kind of that journey there.
Yeah, like I'll back up and say I had this true affinity for like the web, and even at the time, it wasn't a big precedence here at Full Sail. The web was still very unknown. It was unknown as if it was ever going to be able to be monetized in any specific way. It's pretty crazy. I remember being in lab and someone's like, "What are you doing right now?" And I'm like, "I'm sending files to my house from here." And they're like, "How are you? You're connecting to your computer?" Like it was a big deal to be able to FTP something at that stage.
Right.
So it was kind of cool that you could take my lab files and send them home so they would be there when I would get home to then go work on my projects. So yeah, it has obviously come a long way. But yeah, to answer your other question, I think I when I graduated from Full Sail, I went. I just knew that the web was like. I just was like just infatuated with it. I wanted to know everything about it. I wanted to build for it. And so I had started my company basically out of my garage. It was just me. And started bringing on some friends, and we legitimately worked in my garage. We like carved out a space and like made it work. And I think for me, what I noticed, I started realizing there was this trend about every 18 months or so, if we were not kind of leaning into what was new, and being okay to let go of what was sort of old technology, like we wouldn't be here today. But I think again, because we had that affinity for technology the way that we did, we were always like, oh, check out this new thing. And then we would stay up all night trying to figure it out. And how do we implement that? And I remember I remember leveraging technologies for some of my customers at the time that were so new that there was no support. So when it didn't work, they were like, I mean, I would even contact the company. They're like, we're still working on that. We haven't figured that out yet. So like, it's just one of those things where I think you kind of have to constantly be on the tip of like, how do you capitalize off of what is now, but also be okay to kind of let go of some of the older stuff and be able to move forward.
So it's kind of interesting. It sounds like, if you go back to what you said about digital media, it's, the Wild Wild West kind of a thing with the curriculum and formal education really being developed around these technologies that are brand new. Sometimes the companies themselves don't even have figured out yet. Do you think that time in the program and going through education like that helped prepare you at all for kind of that same unknown in the real world and kind of embracing kind of the challenges and self motivation and kind of exploration that you have
No,
to have?
absolutely. I would not be where I am today had it not been for Full Sail, like 100%. And people were like, well, how do you say that when like what you learned there is irrelevant at this stage? And it's really not about what I learned about being able to apply that to what I'm doing today. It's the vigor and like just this exploratory mentality of like everyone here. I love the idea that labs run all the time and that people are breaking out into groups and trying to solve bigger things. There's just sort of this essence here of that. And like it set me up to like stay in that workflow once I left here. Like come into a lab in the middle of the night. Like I remember working many nights all through the night just because I wanted to figure something out.
Sure.
And it sort of sets the stage for that. And so yeah, I love that about Full Sail.
So as a student, you're kind of subject to, deadlines and getting a project done and submitted and everything like that. Sometimes taking extreme hours at
Yeah.
night to get it all done. You carry that forward into founding your own company. So that a lot of students here, I don't hands in the audience. I'm kind of curious, how many people are interested one day to maybe start their own thing? Is anybody entrepreneurial mindset? Yeah, a lot of hands. I find that's pretty typical with our student body here. Is that a lot of people are kind of interested one day to work for themselves. So going from submitting assignments to founder of a company and kind of making that adjustment, walk us through that. Like where was your head at when you're like, okay, I definitely want to do my own thing, and what were some of the hurdles maybe that you came across?
I think it's like different than that. Like it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to do my own thing. I had a way of wanting to do something that I didn't think resonated well. Like the part I left out is I obviously got a couple jobs right after I graduated, had multiple opportunities, but I always found myself like not following the path of that. And I think that's something you really got to ask yourself. I mean, I think it's so glamorous these days to like be an entrepreneur or whatever, but it is extremely hard work, and it has to be part of like what I call your gifting system and what your purpose is. Like I think we're all born with like special talents and special abilities that every person has their unique sets. And I think identifying that first and foremost above anything is key, and then understanding where that plays out, because not everyone's meant to run a company necessarily. Like I'm not even the best at running a company. Like I'm more of a visionary. I'm more of like, here's like a great idea and concept and sort of getting people excited around that. But like literally have people that just blow me out of the water when it comes to like finance, and there's so many other facets to running a business that people don't think about. They think it's just about this thing that I'm good, that I like to do, and I just can go run a business. And I think so. I think there's more importantly is figuring out who you are as a person, like what your true purpose is. Because what I discovered was on my final project, I was working, didn't even realize it. I was working on a paid project as my final project, and it was something that was going. It was for a major record label, and it was an artist release, and I'd worked on a digital media CD-ROM project at the time that ended up going out for this nationally acclaimed artist at the time. And I realized everyone's like, "Oh, your project's really cool. Like, how'd you come up with it?" I'm like, "It's real. Like, I'm actually working on a real project." So I think I've just always sort of had this entrepreneurial spirit, out even more outside of like the idea of, sitting down and looking at tasks and being like, "That's what I'm going to feel accomplished today, getting these few things done." Because I'm not a finisher, like at all. Like, terrible finisher. So I need those people around me in order to do those things and to kind of get where we're trying to go as a company.
I think that's part of the dichotomy of success, right? Is you have the people that they're thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
So you're always kind of like chasing your tail, so to speak, and that it's like what's next, and you need other people that kind of work alongside you. I think you said gifts, that their gift is like, okay, that's great that's next, but this thing is what's now, and we
Absolutely.
we got to wrap it up. Right?
Some people's gifts are actually, what I call the doers. I mean, that is what they want to be doing. They're like, "Wow, that's a great idea. Now let me go build a plan to make that work." There's people that literally love to wrap their head around. Actually, my VP, Michael Parler, who's also a graduate from here, is the absolute best facilitator of taking my nebulous idea and making it not only into shaping it, and that's the word I actually like to use, is just shaper, not a doer. They shape the idea and actually make it something that can go out to the world. And some people's that's their gift. They're just really super good at that. And so I think that's why I challenge people, instead of like, finding that intentionality of like, what do you really want? But not what's going to impress your mom or your dad or your girlfriend. Like, if I say I do these things, then like people will accept me or like me. Like, literally throw that out the window. Like, what excites you to the point that you like lose track of all those things? Like, didn't eat today, I was doing this cool thing and I'm excited about it. That's what really matters. Like, because I think when you figure out what your true purpose is and you align it with your abilities, your inborn abilities, like magic level stuff happens. Like, that is unexplainable. So that to me is what I will always pound back to people, is like when they say like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to start a company when I'm out." Like, there's so many facets to running a business. What do you really care about? What do you want to do in this world that really is going to make you feel like whole and complete? And I think so. That's key for me.
That's interesting. I had a student bring to my attention a couple weeks ago, actually, this concept of ikigai. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's a Venn diagram essentially of a mixture between passion, world needs, self needs, and skills, and like kind of your purpose is in the middle. And that seems to be a lot like what you're talking about,
Absolutely.
where you got to find something that kind of mixes all of those different areas. So going out and you start your own company. It seems like there's some people at least interested in that. I think one of the biggest questions I always get when I talk about entrepreneurship is how do you start? Where do you get your client? Like what are you doing? Like let's start there. Where do you get your first business? How do you get money coming in?
Again, when the passion is there, I kid you not, it just sort of happens. So like that project I was talking about, having to be an artist in a band that I really admired, and I just took the steps out to say, "Hey, I'm working. I've got to do a final project. I know that you guys are going to do an album this year. What if we did some cool interactive content on there?" And I think a lot of times, people want things to come to them. And I think true intentionality means you've got to go get what you want. You've got to go, like, be intentional. They always say, like, the 5 people you spend the most time with is like the sum of who you are. And I truthfully believe that. And like, so I think it's so important that you have mentors upstream that you like can really lean into and can help guide you. And then also like to be where you are today, there's people that are trying to get even to Full Sail. Like, how can you mentor downstream to like a sibling or a friend or whatever, right? And help coach them. Because I think it has to go both ways for it to work. So, you know, the way I see it is it's so important that you focus on that intentionality aspect of it.
I actually read an interesting quote today. I think it was on Facebook, as fate would have it. But it was you are the CEO of your own life. You can promote, demote, and fire anyone that you want. That's in your life that adds or removes value. And I think that kind of ties into that. Surround yourself with good people and kind of do that.
It's so important. And then, you know, I'm a terrible reader, but I have books all over the house. Like I buy so many books, but truthfully, my ADD kicks in. I'll read half a page and put it down. But I think like I read this article one time that meant so much to me that said, don't feel like you have to buy a book and start it from first page and read it to the last page. Like it's there as a reference point. It's there for inspiration. Like when you feel that calling, pull that book off the shelf and just open it. Like it's amazing how many times I find something that I need out of a book when I haven't read it cover to cover. It's just been more of like, be okay with just saying, I have all these books and I grab them based on inspiration and need. And I kind of pull from those resources to make decisions.
That's a really interesting concept. Yeah, I do think there's a lot of pressure that people find where it's like, oh, I have to do this whole thing, or you know, you can take value out of any segment of anything
Absolutely.
that you try to take value out of. So going back to kind of entrepreneurship, you started this company back in 2004. I relate to this really well because, being ahead of mobile, you know, I graduated college before then as well. Cell phone was a different beast back then. So as technology has changed, you know, you go from 2004 to where we are today, you know, you have the advent of the smartphone, iOS, Android, touchscreen technologies, interactive content in a mobile world. You can order a sandwich from Wawa on a touchscreen and those kinds of things. How do you find that you said the 18-month kind of leaning in and everything. What are some of the things that you've kind of experienced in that journey? Because it sounds like you created a company at like the worst time possible in terms of like having to adjust to all this media. You could call it the best time or the worst time. It's kind of hand in hand, I think. But how did you kind of deal with that? And what are some of the things that you encountered along the way, the advent of mobile and transitioning?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we will have major debates at the company like, what is it that we do here? And I think at the end of the day, we are passionate about technology. We're passionate about connecting customers to the products that we support and the brands we work with. And whatever the best means is at that time is for us to bring to the table. What is going to be the best solve for our customer? And so, for me, like I said, we've noticed about every 18 months we have this massive shift. And so, like, the whole like sort of advent of the internet being able to share content, that was not a thing when I started building websites. When I started building websites, it was more of what I would call a window viewing. The content's there, you can't interact with it. You're just strolling down the street and looking through the window. Like, that was what the internet was. And then I remember one day I got the phone call, because I'm a designer at the heart. I'm a creative. I'm not a developer. I can kind of toe the line a little bit after all these years of knowing some solution-driven stuff that makes sense for that, but it's surface level. So for me, when the day came, I got a phone call and they're like, hey, this band's going on tour. They want to be able to post from the road. And I'm like, post from the road? What do you mean? Like, and I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. I'm like, literally, can we build something like this? And like me and all the guys are like, I don't know how to do it, but we'll figure it out. And I think that is the mentality you kind of got to have. You kind of got to have an ear to the ground to say, here's trends that are happening. Here's things I'm seeing. There's like user interactions that you're seeing on devices across multiple platforms that you start to go, this is the way society is adapting. These are the things that are requirements. Attention spans are narrowing. like how do you develop content and how do you develop meaningful, engaging content and sort of UI UX that the customer is going to engage with. And so that's a constant evolution. And it takes some experimentation, it takes some trial and error, but more importantly is having a good research and develop a planning team that can actually go in and act and kind of dive deep with the customer to understand what those friction points look like. But like I said, every 18 months we would drop and add services. So like I remember moving into the era of like building our first CMS. And at the time, there was no WordPress. There was none of this stuff. So we built our own. And there was a point where we were going to become a CMS company because we'd built a really robust platform. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think that's who we are. Like, I hear you. And I'm glad we didn't, because we would have been ran over and we would not be in business. So I think the thing that we have been so passionate about is chasing technology and chasing like what's possible and what capabilities can we derive out of the people we have. So Purple is always is the sum of its people. It is no greater, no less. Like we can't boast about things if our people can't do it. And so for me, it's this constant pulse on understanding our DNA, understanding, like I said, do I have the right people in the right seats with the right passions to develop the best possible outcome for our partners? And those change, and people come in and people go. Like we drop services that, when like SEO and stuff became very commoditized to the stage of where it was made more sense to be insourced, and there was enough wealth out there that people could hire it in versus coming to a firm like ours. I'm like, we got to drop this service, and it was making us a ton of money, and I'm like, we just got to let it go. Like, and we have to evolve. And so, so what that looks like even this year, that's us kind of evolving into like, content has been the consistent thing through all the mixes, right? At the end of the day, content rules. And if I could implore you guys to focus on one gift to work on, if you're not good at, is writing. You're being able to tell your story, because there is nothing greater you can add to your portfolio than being able to write something. So, but like I would say, as we moved and started to drop some of those pieces out of our portfolio, you say, well, what are the requests coming in, and what are some of the sort of trends we're seeing, and are we passionate about it, and do we want to hire for it? So like the last year, we've been very intrigued, obviously, about AR, VR, and spending a lot of time playing around with that. We'll have people building stuff in the office. It's just exploratory. It's meant like literally for us just to like, oh, that's cool. Like, how did you build that? Like, how can we interact with that? How can we take that out to our customer? And so it's really understanding about knowing, and you can feel those fall offs. When something becomes commoditized, the compression at a company level is unprecedented. It's because it's in such high demand, the people that do the skill can ask for more money. And because it's so readily available, the customer can ask to pay less.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, when I start seeing compressed margins on any given discipline or skill set that we're doing, I know that it's time to start saying, all right, we got to evolve. We got to keep pressing forward. So yeah, I think I don't even remember what the original question was, but yeah, pretty cool.
I don't think it matters. So that's like I said, I like these things to be organic.
Yeah.
I think that's where good thoughts come from. You said something early on in there about at heart you're a designer, right? But you've kind of adopted, I got like a whole Bane moment going on in my, I was born into the code side of things, right? So you have this this kind of balance between the designer visionary kind of thing and the can we do it kind of thing. So you also talked a lot about people and finding the right people and aligning passions to getting something done. how do you go about that? I talk a lot about what a degree is worth. As somebody involved with the school, I think that's a big part of kind of my passions. So, how do you align? How do you identify, I guess, the people that are going to be right for you and kind of bring them on board? Like, what are some things that go into that?
It's it's probably one of my gifts is being able to see that in people. Like I think I have an exceptionally high EQ, and it's arguable that my IQ is somewhere here. EQ is like my gift. I mean, I can meet someone and without knowing, I don't need to know. Like we won't. Sometimes I've hired people literally off the street because of conversation. And we're not even hiring for the position, but I'm like, this person belongs at Purple. They're supposed to be at Purple. We will build around them because I can just, it's visceral. I can legitimately feel the energy. I can see their passion. I can see that they've aligned their gifts. And I'm like, this person belongs culturally and talent wise belongs at Purple. And then we will build around that. And like the Testament is like one of those people I legitimately hired off the Convergence in a street has now been with us for I think going on 6 years and just does amazing work. And so I think it's definitely a feeling, and it's the alignment of the skills and the purpose and the timing. Like I believe timing is everything, and I believe that the right person can interview at somewhere multiple times, and maybe they don't get the job to the first 2 interviews, and they're like, "Oh, I should never go back." That's so not true. Because every company's needs and the dynamics of that company changes at any given time. You should always be in pursuant of that. If that is a passion of yours, is to be at a specific company, you should follow through that. Not at like the psycho level where you're like stalking, but like definitely at the level of like, don't give up on it if you think that makes sense. So I think what we do is I have an amazing team at this stage that we have a great HR department. We have a great onboarding. I think you only get one chance to, it's equally as important to me that we show love and compassion to the people we are bringing into the company. And we get one chance to onboard you, one chance. Like, so our impression to you the day you start has got to be amazing. And if it's not, then it doesn't represent the company that I worked so hard to build. And so we have an amazing onboarding process that just gives you care all day long. They take you through our history. They take you through our benefits, and you meet new people, and it's very exploratory and fun. And so, so I think there's so many elements that really stack up for that are really important. I never hire someone based on their skills alone, because you can hire a total jerk that is the smartest guy in the room, but will wreck your culture.
Yeah.
So not about that.
This is actually going pretty quickly. I was surprised to look at my watch just now. Can I just get a clarification? What time are we on till? 3? Is that 3? Okay. So yeah, we're gonna get the questions and answers here because I'm sure that some of these things are happening here. But I just have a couple more things about culture and whatnot. With culture being such a huge part of I want to feel like the whole social narrative. I think if you look at the current crop of students that we have, the current generation, the culture fit is very important. Feeling comfortable. And you said 6 years, and this is going to sound very like back in my day of me, but I remember when a company would look at a resume and they would see someone turn over every 1, 2, maybe 3 years, and that would be a big red flag. And these days, it's like the most common thing to see.
Common.
So to have somebody there for 6 years, like you said, is just some kind of that is a big deal. What do you do actively to maintain your culture? What do you that kind of thing?
So your culture, like I think people like focus on this so much in the wrong way. Like the culture is just how you've acted historically. It's the sum of how you've acted. So I think all you can really do to maintain culture or derive the culture you want is to be present and be compassionate, create an amazing work environment, listen. Like above all else, listen. Like you don't need to solve everyone's problems. And I think that's something I've had to get much better at is my intentionality of just listening, just saying like, hey, tell me about that. Tell me about that client's really got you upset. Tell me about it. And I don't need to go, let me go fix it. Like before, thinking as a founder and as like the CEO, I had to fix everything and touch everything. And it's just like, no. And a lot of times people don't care if you fix it. They just want to be heard. So I think creating a culture that matters to you, whatever that culture looks like, it's not a ping pong table. It's not the snack room. It's literally like you ask people on their exit interview at Purple what the greatest thing about Purple is, that they say the people. They don't talk about like me, the client, like the amenities and our nice, cool office. They literally like, oh my gosh. And I watch now over 15 years, close going on to it, watch the level of camaraderie that has been formed at this company. It is jaw dropping. There are people that were here at different eras who are still best friends today, like groups of people. There are like 6 or 8 people right now that worked here several years ago that are now, they're all in, I think they're in China right now together. Nice. Just this group of 6 people that used to work at Purple, still friends, all, migrated sort of out to the West Coast, and they still hang out. And I think that speaks very highly of sort of the culture we've built. So how we maintain it is be authentic and really care about people. Mm-hmm. So so my personal saying that people know around the office is be humble, care deeply. Mm-hmm. That is so big for me. And I don't always act that out. I'm a human being too. Things get the best of me, but that's my intention. My intention is to honestly because your people are your greatest asset. And so the more you cultivate them, the more you see greatness come out of the brand itself.
That's awesome. All right, so I do want to let the audience ask some questions, and I know we are streaming this, and we have some questions online as well. Anybody here think of anything they want to ask over here? We got a couple hands up here in the front.
So I'm a firm believer that to seek excellence, you must become an everyday person, and not every day as in ordinary, more like every day as in you do something every day to pursue your definition of excellence. And so my question was, is there anything that you do every day that you see that like helps you seek your definition of excellence? Is that like whether that's interacting with others or something you do on your own? Just curious.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I do. I have a pretty ritualistic routine that I do my best to adhere to. I have 3 boys. I'm newly married again. I got married about a year ago, and so life is nuts. Trying to run multiple companies and do all the things, but for me personally, like prayer time is huge for me. I spend a lot of time in prayer. I spend a lot of time meditating. I spend a lot of time journaling as well. Like I think the joke is women have diaries, men have journals. But yeah. So I try to journal and collect my thoughts. But the biggest thing, no matter what, is getting my day started ahead of everyone else. I do my best to wake up around 5:30. Sometimes I get up right away. Sometimes I lay there for 30 minutes. But that's big for me. I think coming up with something that allows you to not be reactive to your day. Like you should never be reactive to your day. So whatever things you can put in place. And then, I think knowing when to turn it off too, because I had a really hard time with that early on. So it's cool though. Thanks for the question.
That's a good question. You have another one, right?
Hello, Christian Snow in entertainment business. For us who are graduating in 1 to 2 years, I know that you're speaking how Full Sail gives us the ability to adapt to anything. But from what you see in the coming years, where do you see technology going?
I mean, that is so difficult to say. I could definitely throw it out there. I'm also the guy who was wearing Google Glass on the front of the OBJ and is dead today, right? That's just it though, right? It's like lean into whatever it is you believe in. It doesn't matter The trends are there. Like everything has been so leveled out as far as playing field goes. You can't really hide from like what's the truth. And so you can kind of see the trends happening. Paying attention to the bigger brands, the Facebooks and the Googles, super important because whatever path they're on is going to dictate when you have that level of a following and that control of the internet. You're an influencer. So looking at that stuff, obviously, I think there's going to be some really cool stuff coming up with AR. I think that's the very next thing because we all have a device in our pocket. I don't know does anyone here not have a device in your pocket? No. So I think AR is going to be a big play. Newfound ways of getting content out is going to be big too. I think digestibles. It's got to be super digestible. So cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll go online.
Hey, Bobby, I actually have two questions for you. The first one is from Colleen. She is an entertainment business master's degree student. She would like to know what your biggest downfall was and what did you do to overcome it?
Biggest
That's one of those
down-
interview questions.
I don't know how to say this, but like, I don't believe in that. Like, I believe that everything is an opportunity. Me and one of my buddies have this saying, no bad outcomes. So downfall wise, I think things happen, but at the same time, I feel like those are they're just repositioning you for your greatness that's about to come. I just genuinely believe that. I think that, probably I'd say a downfall that I would own up to was holding on to things too tightly in the early days, thinking that I had to touch every project, I had to be the creative director on everything, and not allowing people to take ownership. And the day that I learned that people always want the opportunity. People are hungry for opportunity. And I think so many times companies are afraid to give people chances. Like I include interns in our meetings. And like, if you got a great idea, bring it. Like there should not be this separation based on title or level of experience that says you're not allowed to participate. And so I think like a great idea is a great idea. And so, I think really focusing on that, and being able to explore that more over the last probably 7 to 10 years of being like, wow, I let go of that and they actually are crushing it. Like really was like, wow, I should have done that sooner. So that'd probably be my thing with downfall.
I do have another question from Stefan, who is a new digital marketing student. It's a twofold question. Before you had said you never actually finished a book cover to cover. If you had the opportunity to give a new entrepreneur a chance to read a book, what book would that be?
So I will give away my literal prized book that I think everyone should go grab if you haven't. And it's by Ray Dalio. It's Principles. It's a very big book. And what's great about it is it's not a required read from front to back. It's just chocked full of really strong principles on how to not only run your life, but teams and companies. And it's just full of great information. So that would be my book.
Okay, and the last part to Stefan's question is, because you were a Full Sail alum, how much of what you did at Full Sail do you see yourself using day to day?
Like I was saying earlier, it's not about, I'm not sitting in Illustrator or anything like that. So, but it put me on the path, right? Like this school is absolutely amazing, and its ability to, I think what it also does for you is substantiates you. It lets people out there like me and other founders and other major companies go, oh, wow, they're taking this seriously. They went to Full Sail. That's a major investment into yourselves and not to be taken lightly. So I think, if anything, it's served as a beacon for me that says like, yeah, I did that. I was committed to that. And that's my passions. And that's the path I want to be on. Like I really was bummed out the day I walked off this campus because I loved spending every minute I had here on this campus. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, I would say that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. So we have a question over here. Is that?
Hey, how's it going? I had a question. I was wondering what advice you could give for anyone trying to start a business, something that maybe you did with yours that took you guys, from like to the next level, where it was, you were kind of recognizable to, we're out here and people are calling us now.
Yeah, like I said, when I said there's something magical that happens when your like true purpose meets like your gifts, like I can't say that loudly enough to you. Like, do not go out into this world being fake. Don't go out and like try to impress someone because of the title of your degree. Like, what is it that seriously, even if it's just what you think is only, hey, that role was probably, even though I love being an animator, or I love being, this, whatever, like take that, because you will excel so greatly at that it will shed light as you continue to grow, and it will point you where you're supposed to be. The worst thing you can ever do is like fake it and go left when really your true path is straight. And now you're over here where you're not authentic, and people see that. Like, we live in such a transparent world now that like you just need to be so authentic with that. I would say, but a big win for us truthfully was we had to go through a name change. We ran into some like legal issues with the name we used to have, and we used that as a catalyst. I didn't look at it as like, man, we've invested all this time with this name. Like, how are we ever gonna like figure this out? Literally, when we rebranded to Purple Rock Scissors, the company almost doubled. It was insanity. So, don't be afraid of change. Like, that would be a big one for me. Like face your reality of whatever it is, and then put like there's plenty of them out there, a 4 or 5 step process to like understanding what the problem is that you're facing, putting some guardrails up, and then actually getting yourself rooted in and driving through that. That's key for me.
So it sounds like almost don't be distracted by the pursuit. Just be authentic and let it take you where you're going to be.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we are running out of time here. So just if we could give Bobby one more hand, I think he did a really good job.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And hopefully we'll have him back here in the future. We'll do this again. So thank you for joining us today. For those of you joining us online, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
they leave. They don't stay here. I don't know where they go, but they don't stay here. They go in 3C.